Hello everyone, reacting to force-starting animations that we have on the 1973 Pacific hurricane season. So I'm sort of continuing chronological on this one. If there's any requests for any animations, then do recommend them and I will go to them as well. There is already a couple of requests. And yeah, so without further ado, let's see what this animation has to say. It looks like there's the newer icons. I like this sort of animation icons and display because it gives you more perspective on you have to explain things. So we got Ava on June already. As you can tell by the thumbnail, the intensity already was very well defined by the thumbnail. Like yeah, rapidly intensifying early June, Category 5. This is the earliest Category 5 tropical cyclone in the Eastern Pacific on record. Still to this day, it holds that name. The whole title. I mean, this is literally only June 8th, etc., and it's already Category 5. Like, what a start that will be for a Pacific hurricane season, the Eastern Pacific. Like, that's one more season start that will be. If I'm giving perspective as if it was the 2026 season, but of course this is the incredible 1973 season which has this record. Now we got Bernice, which is almost hurricane's intensity towards just north of the Guerrero region. O3E as well. Noticing a lot of tropical cyclones that were moving. Ava was moving due westerly. It looks like the pattern that was early June. Now we've got these tropical cyclones that are moving more west-northwest, almost due northerly in latitude, forming from tropical waves that are forming easternly from this eastern region here, which is almost the sort of Central American Gyre region with these tropical cyclones, almost like waves that exist. Sometimes they actually kind of form from the tropical waves that exist all the way from the African easterly tropical waves. Those ones can actually progress all the way across the MDR into the Caribbean, provide moisture and regenerate a tropical wave status that crosses into the Central American region, into the Gyre, and that can allow vorticity to develop, and that can allow tropical low to develop, etc. And that progression can occur, but that's not as common. Often it's actually just rapid development of thunderstorm activity that forms around this region, particularly when you have like a gill response. So you have like different times where you have a high pressure ridge to the north, low pressure forms to the south, the pressure is lower to the south. That is a gill response. So that's allowing these sort of synoptics where you get the low pressures to develop high thunderstorm based activity that then allows a lot of vorticity to develop, and so when you have a lot of that vorticity that's transported and into the same waves that develop, that can allow for the vorticity to then become tropical lows, and the tropical lows are the seedlings to tropical cyclones. So this one's moving due northerly. You're gonna have like southerly sort of flow here. There are a lot of quite sharp divides between longitudes of the way the pattern changes. And now it's entering into the July period now. So it's been a bit of a break, but the Eastern Pacific, I've noticed, has a lot of bursts in activity. But yeah, I mean, here's only one tropical cyclone, Doreen, which is a Category 3 already, Category 4 now, briefly, some sort of due westerly sort of track. Emily is also moving somewhat westerly, a little bit more west-northwesterly in a high latitude. Has a Category 4 as well, but dual hurricanes. And it's fairly westerly here as well. Again, you see 06 here as well, which is moving westerly and west-northwesterly as well. So it's a pretty July-based pattern. But Doreen is much further south, propagated and sustained that intensity. You got the sort of high pressure ridge to the north, the North Pacific high. It's moved underneath that ridge, due easterly flow, which creates a westwards based track. But the intensities have also sustained all the way in the southern latitudes to between 15 degrees and 10 degrees north, and now Doreen's approaching Hawaii. So it's interesting when you have a little bit more west-northwesterly flow that can almost allow for the sort of variations within the longitudes. The North Pacific high could retreat, that could create more of a southerly flow that creates this sort of northerly tracks. You can also have the case where you have a lot of shear, the disrupted circulation that moves more actually moves more westerly, but also sometimes the circulation can also have a longer time to form, being closer to the coast as a depression. There's a lot of convective activity that occurs within this region that can induce shear, which can actually disrupt the low level circulations, and as a result, hugging along the coast it rapidly intensifies. But by the time it's intensified, it's moved now west northwesterly, and now it's entered into cooler waters, or it's actually just continued west northwesterly, which as a result puts it at this sort of location rather than moving due westerly at this location. So it's subtle variations which create the Eastern Pacific, like a delicate balance with the Eastern Pacific. And Glendale here isn't favourable isotherms of sea surface temperatures, but it's still not intensifying. It's a weak tropical cyclone still, and now it's moving due northerly. And I've got 08 here as well, giving a perfect example of what I was just saying. Heather, which moves due northerly as well, and weakens very quickly. Sometimes the flow around the land masses can influence it as well. But Iraq is now one of the tropical cyclones that's moving due northerly as well towards the Cabo San Lucas region as a hurricane-based landfall. And Jennifer is a weak tropical depression which actually falls under the Fujiwara influence, following Jennifer, or Iraq actually. Yeah, and that's quite interesting to see the way it just follows the deal. And then Catherine formed pretty far east, pretty far west, actually, because it's exactly 115 degrees west in longitude. It's moved due northerly, but it's actually moved more equatorwards. But as a result, looks like the shear has taken toll on the circulation moving southwesterly. You normally have disrupted circulation. This season's ending pretty early with only L, with Hurricane Lily in the early October period. So actually very interesting how the season was not that favourable. Early season was actually quite favourable. A was obviously the first Category 5 earliest in record, still stands. Overall made a landfall. Mexico's a weakening hurricane, and it did not actually cause much damage either. But yeah, you can see the early season really supported tropical cyclones, and it became more hostile the further into the season. And it ended pretty early as well. I mean, sometimes you get some reports, but here it looks like there's no reports compiled. But yeah, not too much of an impactful season, which is interesting. But we also have rare season with no recorded damages or fatalities, as I was just saying, not very impactful. In fact, it's probably one of the least impactful seasons on record. Category 5 in the Eastern Pacific. It says first Category 5 ever, which I think is probably just the records, but obviously there's much more likely to be tropical cyclones to have that on records. Also, the Eastern Pacific, due to the fact that it moves, a lot of tropical cyclones move east to west, they go over water, and as a result, a lot of the reports, there's not a lot of reports in this basin. And this basin does not have very old reports. A lot of the reports actually exist after 1950, which is a very late sort of reports versus a lot of other basins. Strongest Eastern Pacific storm at the time. I mean, that's again this is just based on records. This is not true. Longest lived storm at the time, Doreen, which is interesting. I mean, it was a pretty far westward moving tropical cyclone all the way to the south of Hawaii. But again, that's just the records. But yeah, I mean that's a really interesting season though, nonetheless. And I'm gonna have to look at the other seasons that follow and progress this and compare it, as is just interesting to see. And I might look at some sort of Enzo records as well to see how that correlates to the way the season is, because I think that's the most impactful thing, is the way the Enzo stands, because it really affects the definition of what we're looking for in Eastern Pacific season. So without further ado, I'll see you in the next animation.